Hi, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever, and whenever anybody's watching this. So thanks for joining us. Today I am talking to Kris and Amber, who are the founders of LassHaus Ales in Austin. Um, it's an interesting story, I think, because as we all know, like brewing has somehow or other become a very male-oriented sort of business. And as the name suggests, LassHaus Ales is very much all-female brewery, and in fact, it's Austin's only one, I think. So, thank you, Kris and Amber, for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
I mean, I don't know where to start because you have what seems like an interesting story, anyway, from what I've read and what we've discussed. So, I suppose that the first thing before we get into LassHaus itself and the name and what you're doing with it, how did you get together and decide to open a brewery at all, regardless of regardless of any other intentions behind it?
Yeah, Kris, do you want to?
Sure, yeah. And apologies about my voice too. It's funny. Last time we did a podcast, I had the same issue. I don't always talk like this, I promise. So, but yeah, so both of us are from Austin, and we actually met at work, and met on some like conditions of we were bonding over a breakup, and like our first hangout was at a brewery, and kind of went from there. I brewed beer in the past, wasn't an expert at all on it, and then Amber was brewing kombucha, and I'd also brewed as well, and it's just something that like I found myself spending weekends at Amber's house. We had a small little kid at the time that we first started brewing on, and I would just pack up my stuff, bring my dog, and spend weekends there, and brewing beer and just kind of learning the process. And at first it was like a fun thing for us to do, and it just evolved into there's more background to it, what kind of inspired like the brewery. And I know Amber has more to speak on that part because she kind of spearheaded that part as well. Kind of came along for the ride, at first. And so, but yeah, Amber, if you wanted to speak on kind of like what your passion was behind it.
Sure, yeah. So, and the time period that she's talking about is about, 10 years ago. So we met 10 years ago, and at that time, I was developing this, I guess I call it maybe like a summit plan for my life. And I eventually want to have an organization one day that builds infrastructure for communities that don't have resources. And so aside from this, like she said, we met at work, which is an engineering firm. So that's what I do outside of brewing. And so I want to focus with that organization years from now. I want to focus on the engineering. I don't want to have to focus on the fundraising aspect of it. So I thought, well, if I have a business, successful business, then it could help start putting funds into this organization. And so at that time, like she said, I was brewing kombucha and was out drinking a lot of beer. My palate was opening up. I was having this great appreciation for what beer can be. It's such an amazing community here in Austin too. Really got ingrained with a lot of the breweries and some of the brewers and, people who are hanging around these places. It's a community. So anyways, I wondered, well, why are these brewers doing this? And so I started looking into the business side of it and realized that, my current passion and my future passion can kind of align at this point. And maybe brewing would be, a fun business to help support that future goal of the organization. So that's what sparked the interest into opening a brewery. And me and Kris were brewing at that time, and I asked her, hey, I have this idea, it's kind of crazy, do you want to be a part of it? And she was like, oh yeah. So I told her the goals, of course helping, like, putting it back into the community. She's all about that. She also loves animals too, so whatever we can do to give group as well for animals, and we'll do that as well. So big-hearted person over there was my perfect brew partner to bring in, and try to tackle this big plan one day.
Yeah, it's sorry, there was just a bit of static there. So yeah, I mean it's the first person I think I've talked to where you had an actual big mission behind it. I mean, I've met lots of people who are doing the home brewing and roasting, and it just kind of grows into that. And there's a little bit of feedback there, I think, and it kind of grows into that. But starting out with you're trying to find a way to get funds is probably unique to anyone I've spoken to. But it also, most brewers I've spoken to are not making an awful lot of money, to be honest with you. So I'm wondering how did that work out? How do you see it? I suppose how do you see it making all this money to fund a big mission?
Yeah, so our business model has a couple revenue streams in it, so it won't just be beer. So we're hoping to, when we build our final tap room, we'll have some other amenities, and it's a bigger, much more expanded concept than a tap room.
Okay.
So we'll need to be creative on covering some of our bills and into the equipment that we're using or we'd like to use and incorporate. Much more efficient. We're getting more productivity out of it. So she has a background. Her background's in financials and making sure projects stay within budget. So she's really keen on maximizing financial sides, and of course with engineering the same. So we are very well aware of what you've said, which is breweries don't make money, but if you look at some of them, they make a lot of money. So
Yeah.
we're hoping that our goal really behind it with the organization, that's really going to channel our energy and efforts, and hopefully people and the universe will respond to that and reinforce that we're on the right path here.
Yeah,
Well,
because
with those other revenue streams too, obviously we want to build a great product, and we feel very confident in our product. But we're also building an experience for people that want to come, the way that we're building that business concept. So that experience that people are going to be having when they come is like really important to us too, because we want them to come back. Like we want that feeling like this is a place I want to bring my friends and family and stuff.
so it's the community side of this. You're going to try and use, obviously, generate money, some portion of which will go to this community foundation. You're also, sounds like you want to be a hub of the community. So is the money going to go into local community, or do you have it? Is that a bigger, wider thing, or is it all in the local community?
There's going to be a mixture. Yeah. So my first community outreach was in South America. So I do have a big heart for communities outside of the States as well, but that there's plenty of opportunity here locally, which we've already done with what we can do. We already are being active in some of the community events here, donating our beer that we do have and helping to provide back into the local community already.
I guess I'm just thinking, like what you said, some breweries, and it's only very few, make a fortune, but most of the rest. And it seems that I presume it's the same in the States as it is over here, that the cost of living, the cost of everything, breweries are closing. So, but the ones that it seems to be separating out in is your big breweries and then local community breweries that are, they're part of the community, so people support them. And that sounds like it's the path you're going down and that you have in your plan.
To be more of like a local,
Yeah.
I guess what I'm thinking you're saying is kind of within the city, like a small tap room, kind of local community hangout. Is that what you kind of did?
Yeah, well, maybe not. I don't know how small, because I'm not thinking like, a one street brewery or anything, but, somewhere like within Austin. I mean, what's the population?
Oh my gosh, I don't know at this point. Are we close to 1 million maybe? I have no idea.
Well, let's just you'll be in Austin.
Yeah.
You'll be an Austin brewery, and that's what
Yeah.
you're kind of looking to expand and export worldwide or anything like you're an Austin brewery that would be well known in the city, and that's what you want to be. We're kind of a destination for people within Austin, tourists to Austin.
Within Austin and people coming to Austin. There's a lot of events and festivals that are held in Austin. And so we're hoping to have some amenities there that will also attract tourists coming into Austin for these events.
Right.
We do want it to be as close to Austin as possible, balancing some of the other goals that we have for the experience that we're looking to offer. So we want to be as close to Austin as possible. With the way real estate is right now, that's incredibly difficult. So we've got what we're working with, and we're hoping with the expansion of Austin too, it's eventually going to envelop the location that we land on. So we'll be surrounded by local people, residents, and then also hopefully in a location that's going to attract the tourists and provide amenities for them.
And so the other thing is then how has it worked out? You're advertising yourself the only all-female brewery, making a big difference in people approaching it. Is it making it harder, easier? How's that been working out just on that focus?
Kris?
I missed part of that question. I'm so because I do hear that feedback too.
Yeah, there's feedback there somewhere.
He said, "How is being all female? What's the reception on being all female?"
I feel like we've had a great response. It's such a male-dominated industry that when they hear about it, I think it just piques people's interest because it's like obviously they want to come and see what we're all about. And I think when they do try our product, they're pretty shocked. Not to be biased, but I think we make some badass beer. I mean, we put hard work though, like we really do. When her and I are like collaborating about our recipe, we're actually, we're doing like our pop rubs and stuff like that. And it's like, what do we like in a beer? But then I feel like we try to expand that too. And like what other people are looking for. Like, we don't want to leave anyone out. Like, I love IPAs, but, and then Amber's kind of helped me, expand my palate on Belgians. And, our flagship is our double saison, Belgian saison. And, but like we put a lot of thought into our work. We want to make sure the quality's there and that we do put out a good product and that we're confident about it when we do. And I think people get surprised when they do try our beer.
Yeah, maybe we'll come back and discuss the beers in a minute. But I'm just thinking of one thing on the all-female thing. You're obviously, it's a part of what your kind of your persona for the brewery, I suppose. And it is very much front and center. I mean, I saw your slogan. What is it? A brothel of beers, and so it's
People do. They really do like it. Especially mentioning the local community again. Our beer is on tap at a lot of the locally owned establishments, and so there's that personal aspect, which the female aspect really helps to dial that or drill that in even more. Because we're from Austin as well, but you'll also have local female-owned places that I can think of a couple right now, and the name of that bar is female-oriented too. So when we walk into a place like that, they dig it so much. They're really excited just to be able to put a beer on that helps support their program already and support the message, that they have in their names. And so there's that side where, females supporting females. And then the guys, when we walk into places, the guys dig it too. They just think it's the coolest thing. I've never really heard anything against, there's been one person, one person, I think, in this entire experience, that, kind of put a dig at us. But other than that, it is an element, and we're not going for extremes on either side. We're not trying to put out a feminist message, and we're not hypersexualizing anything either. We're just having fun with it. And so everybody has fun with it too. We have some names that are conversation starters. And so, people who are drinking the beer too, they end up creating a story that makes sense to them around the names of the beers that we have. And it's just really, really fun. So you've got the restaurants who, really, they want to bring us in because they like the edge of it that they haven't seen before. It helps support what they're, a message they already have, if they have one, in terms of, being female oriented. And then, when people drink it, they're just having a ball of a time laughing and giggling at some of the imagery and the words that we put on it that are all geared to have just, a lot of fun with the female aspect.
And does it make it feel like you've got to prove anything extra? Because I did read that article, and it was about how you seem to feel like you have to do every stage of it so that you can say it was female done, rather than, you don't have a big team and you're kind of almost determined to do it all, every stage yourself, and maybe you don't need to. So is that important?
Well, it's us two right now. We've had to do it all ourselves because, over the last 10 years, we've been building the brand and the recipes. And, 10 years ago, I did try to pitch it to the concept to other people to try to bring in partners. And at that time, the concept of the brewery, which is like every brewery now, it just didn't get a lot of, they didn't believe that was going to be the future of the beer, garden concept. So that left us to believe in our brand and to believe in what we could do. So that's why it's been us two over the past 10 years. And then currently it's still us two because of the nature of just where we are and growing. Hiring employees right now is something that's within our capability. Because it's still us two at this point. We're building this with our own resources. So it's not that we want to do everything ourselves. We would love to bring on a team at this point. We are still working full time to help get the brewery kicked off. And so we're doing what we can versus, trying to do everything. But it's been really important that, we do most of the work at this point. We're still learning a lot. So there's definitely a benefit to that. But we want to be in control of the recipes. This is, all the flavors that have come out have been created from me and her, and it's done really well. So we're still very much enthralled in the process, and we're not ready to let that go yet, for sure.
And where are you brewing? Do you have your own brewery at the moment, or are you doing it under kind of a gypsy brewing? Or
you want to explain, Kris?
Yeah, currently right now we're doing contract brewing, so we brew on other people's equipment.
Okay.
So our production is not necessary. We have a pilot area. We call it our dive garden, that's where we pilot a lot of our newer recipes before we take them into production. That's kind of where I think a lot of people know us too. If you're on our website, you'll see like pictures of our dive garden where we've held events.
Okay.
Kind of that's where our brand. Where we built our brand, and the like environment and the experience that we want to put into, once we have our tap room and like our brick and mortar area.
And where are you in terms of getting the tap room up and running? Is it a bit away yet, or is it closer than that?
Yeah, I would say it's a bit away. So once we identify a property, it will be, we'll have to do construction. The type of property that we're looking for, if it's, raw land, just the nature of permitting where we're at in the city of Austin, we won't even be able to touch it for 8 months.
Okay.
So we'll buy the property, 8 months goes by, then we can start construction. And we are, considering phased construction where we can start brewing sooner than, let's say, the tap room's ready to open. So we can at least have our own place. Because like she said, our current model is renting other people's equipment, which comes with a set of challenges. And we're definitely ready to have our own tap room. So that's the ultimate goal. That was the original goal, was to have our own tap room. But what was happening is as we go around, we hang out in our neighborhood spots. And we were telling the managers, we're going to have a brewery one day, and they said, well, just bring us the beer. We'll put it on draft. So, okay, well, we don't have a tap room yet. So let's figure out how we can get beer now that's, certified to sell to retail. And that's when we entered into the agreement that we have now, which is being able to, borrow other people's equipment. And so we've been kind of managing that current model of the distribution while we try to continue to pursue our own tap room.
And does that mean you're limited in the number of days you can brew, or like how flexible is the arrangement?
There's a lot of limitations. And so we've done our best to work within that. And yeah, whenever you're trying to work in the schedule of another production facility, you have to kind of abide by what they're comfortable with. And so when we work full time, we'd like to be brewing on the weekends, but they're not open on weekends. So we have to fit some things into their schedule. So
sounds like I don't know where you're finding the time to actually do anything else like talk to me. I mean, it sounds like so you're distributing then in local bars and restaurants. You do have a distribution set up, and you're like you said, you've built a brand. You're well or reasonably well known in Austin. I don't know how well known, but you are reasonably well known, and people are looking for the beers.
Well, yeah, we self distribute right now, so it's us also taking the beers around. So yeah, very very much local area.
Right.
But it is cool. Yeah, we'll have people reaching out from out of state, even someone out of the country at one point was just like, hey, we're around the corner. Can we stop by the dive garden and come check out your beers or check out the place? And, there's been several times where it's like perfect timing. Like we're around and we'll go get the dive garden set up and, have them come over. So it has been really cool. Like, even though most of our beers we serve locally, it's been reaching out to other people, like not in the local area.
The local distribution, sorry, is it all kind of on like to bars, or do you have cans and bottles and that as well to shops, or is it a one distribution channel? Or
yeah, currently we're just in kegs right now. We are definitely, like, in the future we'll be canning for sure.
Okay. I mean, it sounds, yeah, like, I mean, it's like I said, there's more breweries closing now probably than opening. So just keeping going is a huge thing, especially when you're trying to self-fund it. So the beers, I mean, you mentioned there Belgians being a big influence.
Yeah, Belgian's my favorite style. I've been drinking those for a long time. So, we're not necessarily like a Belgian brewery. We brew a little something for everyone. Like Kris said, her favorites are IPAs, but we've had several other styles too. But in terms of Belgians, that's the influences from that is coming from me. And so I work really hard to we work really hard to try to dial in some of those styles. And, Belgians aren't exactly, they have a character of their own to tap into and refine, and adding spices and different kinds of yeast. Just to me, it really, it's just a lot of fun to drink those styles of beer. So those are my favorite, and that's why you'll see a couple Belgians. We, our one of our favorite styles is our double Belgian saison, and so people like to, compare it to like a DuPont with some extra flavor. It's like a double, so it's got really nice flavors like DuPont has, and you just kind of amplify all that, and you'll have something, a LassHaus double saison.
Right.
So yeah, we've been really fortunate. Even our Belgian beer bar here in Austin that, focuses on Belgian only styles, they're willing to put that one on draft. So that was a huge accomplishment ever since I can remember going there. It was always, I'd start daydreaming about seeing our beer on the wall and like what a milestone that would be for us. And so that did finally happen last year. And that was really great encouragement, so to say, to keep going.
Yeah, and are Belgians, because I get the impression, again, like probably most of the world, IPAs kind of took over everything for a long time. So is a Belgian scene kind of coming back in there, or is also a much more mixed scene now, or is it still very IPA?
I would say people really dig IPAs, a lot of the juicy IPAs. But in terms of is Belgians coming back, it's not like a resurgence, but people are finding their appreciation for it again. I do know up in New England area, like a long-standing Belgian brewery shut down. So, but there are articles that I'm seeing about, Belgian being something that can, that, people are going to start appreciating again. So
Yeah.
it's kind of on its way back.
When we bring our sample, like our beer, our main piece, one of the comments that we usually get is like, we don't have something like this on our wall. Like, we would love to have something like this on our wall. It's different. They're like, we don't have many saisons to choose from, or like a Belgian. And so it's awesome to be able to fill that void here.
Yeah, because I think I've mentioned this somewhere else to someone, but my brother, when I was talking to him about beer, and he was just like, "Nope, won't go near craft beer." I went into a bar, and all they said was like, "We have 36 taps, and they're all very hops." And he said, "And I don't want hops. I don't want it." But that was all that was available. So that's his association of kind of craft beer. Yeah, it's just different hops, and which he's not wrong to some extent, or at least wasn't for a long time. But I think that there's more variety coming through now, like you said, in Belgians, kind of spontaneous beers and all, saisons, all of those. There seems to be a lot more variety, and a lot of German styles coming back into fashion as well. So it's definitely following kind of fashion trends.
Yeah, and we're hoping to bring back another style of IPAs. A lot of the juicy East Coast IPAs are, really popular. They're very approachable, so to say. And recently we've kind of gone back to the West Coast, the cozy pine tree. I mean, not overpowering, but that feel of a West Coast IPA with a little bit more hops in it, a little less fruity. More like dark fruit. So we brewed one of those late last year. It got really great reception. We did it specifically for a festival called East West Beer Fest, and each brewery brought one East Coast, one West Coast, and then there was a vote as well. So our West Coast was voted the number one West Coast, which also made it number one overall at the festival too.
Okay.
So we're hoping to maybe kind of establish, that flavor profile, at least locally, to, bring back the other side of IPAs.
And when you're brewing, do you is it very much influenced by what you think someone will sell, or is it very much like what you want to drink?
I feel like we're very we try to be aware of what people want to drink, and also looking at the trends. Because obviously we have a juicy IPA we've brewed that was very much well enjoyed, and we got really good feedback and reception from it. So I think we do. Obviously, it's like I love IPAs, and it's funny because like I want to get punched in the face by hops, like punch my throat, like. Yeah, and so she has to dial me back sometimes, on the IBUs, because it's like, let's make it high, and she's like, let's not. But, so we do, like, we look at what people are drinking, and especially, we also want to drink it too. So, I mean, there's, certain beers that, or, ales that our pub ale, like, I think is also amazing, that something that, we like, and we've noticed that it had really good reception too whenever we had served it. So I think we try to listen to hear what other people want. And it seems like though when we do brew something different like that and people hear it, they want to try it because obviously you see the same stuff around town, like the IPAs and whatnot. But it was cool to be part of that festival to be able to, there's a big presence of IPAs here. There's a festival, but then bringing something that's kind of different than what the IPAs are here we do have here.
And is that what you think the brand will be? Is a lot of kind of, well, I guess rather than that, I'll ask, what kind of beers do you think the brand will be associated with? Like, is there a style that you want? People will think of LassHaus Ales, and there'll be a specific style that'll jump to mind, or is it just like quirky beers? Or
I would call it personality.
okay,
So personality ales, maybe, if I had to come up with something right now. But and it kind of fits. We were at one of our bars one day and sampling some beers with the owner there, and it was it might have been a super light beer. And I told him, it's a light beer, but we can't do anything normal. It has some twists on it. And he tasted it and he said, "Oh yeah, I can taste y'all's personality on this. I can taste the LassHaus on this." And so, we are, I drink the beer around here. And when I do create a beer, I want to create something I haven't had before. So whether I build it off of a traditional style and then we add the spices, or we change the yeast up, or we change the grain bill, we're going for something that me and her are personally seeking to be able to experience in the beer. Then it gets great reception, and that's something that we end up putting out. So it has a cycle of how do we dial in on what styles we're putting out. And then also we pay attention to seasons as much as we can too. So that'll have an impact on what we put out. But overall, it's ales. We brew ales. People, if someone says, "I want a really great Belgian," hopefully they'll think of LassHaus Ales. If they say, "I want a really great IPA that punches you in the face," hopefully they'll think of LassHaus Ales. Or if they're like, "I want something different today. I want something that's going to surprise me," then they'll think of LassHaus Ales. So
yeah, I think that's kind of an understated or underappreciated thing of a lot of breweries, because they are, especially like you mentioned with hops, like there are so many breweries producing the exact same thing practically. That you just could not differentiate. You go in, you buy it, and it could be, you wouldn't know what brewery it's from, whereas you sound like and you have something that you want to be identified. People will identify that this comes from you and not from anyone else.
hopefully, yeah, that'd be great.
So just talking about the Belgians for a while, I think I came across, like, the Belgians are obviously very yeast. The yeast plays maybe a bigger part in that than in IPA. So is that something you have trouble managing? Is there any issue, or do you just experiment with different yeasts, or how do you play with the yeasts in your beers?
We have some of our favorites that we use, and gotten really familiar with those yeast. And I mean, some of them, one of the core yeast, it's temperamental, and it stalls out during fermentation, and we have to kick it back into gear. It takes a little bit longer. Some of them are not so hard to deal with either. You throw it in there and it's the same process. But it does add, it is a big part of the flavor profile and texture too.
Yeah.
And so knowing what those flavor profiles are, it's a huge consideration on which beer we use them in. And then also if we're going to add any other spices to it, that they, agree with each other. But that's the beauty of having Kris join me on the creation of these beers, is that we get together and we put our palates and our senses together, and we're able to build off of it. So
And have your palates or your tastes, have they changed over the 10 years since you set up, or has,
Main Piece is still like one of my favorite beers. I can't help it. So that one was created in 2018. So over the last 6 years, it's still like just as tasty as ever. But no, in terms of Belgians, there's in the last 10 years, they're still my favorite. I'm always looking for that on a menu. It has not changed, not for me, not one bit. So I don't know about Kris and her IPAs, but still, yeah, my palate's still the same. I'm trying to open up to like lagers, going from like loving Belgians to like lager. And so that is one of the harder styles for me to brew is a lager because I just don't drink them all the time. So if I want to try to dial in that flavor profile, I'm not as familiar with it. So I'm still working on opening my palate to lagers so I can be a better brewer at them.
and you, Kris, has it always been IPAs, or?
So, well, and like growing up in a family like Texas, my family are big. Like, they drink, what do you say? Just, yeah, they drink like the really light beers, just like, like the Bud Lights and the Miller Lights. And so growing up being around that, when Amber and I started hanging out, well, I was drinking IPAs before that. But it was Amber helped expand my palate to like Belgians and whatnot. But I've always liked the heavier beers. Like, and so even when we're brewing, sometimes it's hard to kind of try to dial it back into like a lighter beer, like our cream ale. But I think we did a damn good job on the cream ale. But yeah, I just remember probably the first IPA that I fell in love with that made me love IPAs, and this is probably why I like to get punched in the face by hops, is the 512 double IPA. Like anywhere I could find a double IPA from them, it was just like that's what I was ordering. And so, but then I had like my favorite IPA is the Lone Pint Yellow Rose, and it's a smashed IPA, a very simple like IPA, but they just did it beautifully. So I definitely like the variety of what type of beers have grown for me for sure. Especially like outside of that. But yeah, but it's just funny because even when my family comes to taste our beers, like coming from a family that drinks just like the store bought light beers, they'll taste it and they're just like, whoa,
They love it.
I like it.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is a difference between those and flavorful beers. I mean, it's
very much so.
yeah.
But
So
I mean, it's been a fun ride though. Just being able, I think that's the fun part about craft beer though is, being able to even, I got so much more to learn about all the different styles. But that's the fun part about it. Like I want to learn more about it, and I want to try these other beers that we haven't necessarily explored. But that's the fun part.
yeah, no, I mean that there's a whole world out there. I mean, I still
Mhm.
remember the first time I tried a sour. I mean, or like a lambic. I nearly spat it out, but I've come to like them since. So your palate does change and
Mhm.
it gets more open as you go along.
Yeah, well, my palate changes on brew days for sure. Because if I'm there
Oh,
for 8 hours drinking a beer, I can't drink Belgians all day. So I have ventured over to some lagers, on the brew days. My palate does adjust for that.
yeah.
So yeah, so by the end of the brew day, you want to do something completely different. So yeah, so where do you think you're going now at this stage? I mean, you've been this came into existence as an idea 10 years ago, and obviously you've been, like I said, there's been ups and downs, and you're still plowing through what is probably a very difficult time to get a brewery going and running. But you have a distribution, you have customers who look for your beers and that. So how long or where do you think you're going next? Is you just going to expand that distribution out for a while and then get a property, or is it still just when the right property comes along, you're ready to jump on it? Or
So we're looking for a property. we want to have our own space as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then in terms of, are we going to continue to distribute? We've hit some hurdles, some pretty, we've had a recent very large setback. And so what we're doing is we're really trying to assess where we go with the distribution side while we look for our tap room. So there's, a lot of benefits to being able to brew on someone else's equipment, but there's also a heavy set of challenges that come with that. So, we're on a threshold that if we do continue our distribution, we'll also increase our production on that as well. So we'll have some big goals on that end. If we continue the distribution, we'll, like to increase production, and spread our footprint some, even canning. So being more into the retail stores, grocery stores as well. But, again, the goal is a tap room. So while distribution can be, a great way to kind of fill up our time, all the extra time we have. In the meantime, no, we want to have focus on the tap room. And it's not like when a property comes up, it's definitely actively looking and planning and trying to figure out what fits our needs.
Right. Okay, so well, I hope that works out soon. Is there anything? So just coming back to the all-female kind of branding of that, is there anything that any other maybe all-female group or partners, or maybe even just a single female trying to set up their own brewery, is there anything that in just being female you would kind of advise them for or against?
I would say be yourself.
Yeah.
Be yourself. Don't worry about the female thing. I mean, I do want to be thoughtful, though, that in other geographical areas, maybe that's different, what they might experience there. But ultimately, I think just being yourself, and it's a dream that you have, then go for it, Yeah,
because like you said, in other areas, because there have been an awful lot of stories about, sexism and misogyny and all of that. And I think when it first started, the whole craft beer scene started coming out over here, it was very much out of the UK, and some of the cans, the whole thing, it was very sexist, and it was off-putting to a lot of people. But at the same time, I've never spoken to anyone in the time I've been talking to you who comes across anything like that. So I'm always wondering where the stories, how realistic or how widespread it was, and how that sort of thing. But it sounds like in Austin, at least, there isn't any resistance. You are who you are, and that's, if you're interested in beer, you're interested in beer.
Yeah, that's true. And I think to some of the men in the industry, they have daughters that come to their breweries. So when they meet us, they think about their own relationships with females in their lives, and that's their daughters. Yeah. So they really dig the idea. But it's definitely a path too, that as you navigate the industry wherever you're located, there are going to be challenges. There's other challenges that we have from being female, and obviously physical strength is one of them.
We're working on carrying a half barrel keg ourselves.
Yeah, purchase your equipment and things that you can manage. Frankenstein, that's her dog. Frankenstein, yeah, we can hear it. So yeah, always be cognizant too that we can do anything we want to do with the right tools. So whether that be actually physical equipment or yourself, your brand, who you are to the community, and how you present yourself. So yeah, don't get down on the fact that you're a female. How can you use it to your advantage? And if you have to move, because look at different areas in your where you're located, where there is better reception. Ignore the people that don't like you if you can. I know, like, we're capable of doing that here. So I don't want to sound insensitive. There may really be areas that people can't just ignore it. But yeah, be yourself.
One of the first things I remember when we were first getting started, we did a homebrew contest, and there was a person there, and she was also a fellow female. But she was, people were asking just about like our goals and everything, and about our future like idea for the brewery. And there was, she was one of the most like one that was kind of like the adversary there and telling us why we wouldn't be able to make it. Like it's such a saturated, industry, and this is why you're not going to make it. And it's like her and I just kind of like let it roll off her shoulders and kind of, we talk about that moment, not like often, but I just remember that, and we kind of just used it as fuel to the fire, like, and it doesn't just come from, Nels, like it comes from everyone. And so, but yeah, just kind of like letting it kind of, roll off your shoulder, because it can get to you. It gets to everyone if there's negative comments. And you know what? And it's going to come, whatever, if you're in the beer industry, in the engineering industry, there's always going to be, like negative comments or something that's always going to hurdles or challenges that get in your way and stuff like that. But I think just keep going if you believe in it. And don't let, the negativity get to you.
Right. Well, that sounds like a pretty good, pretty upbeat thing to finish on. I think pretty good note. Listen, yeah. So, like, if someone's coming to Austin, and I know a lot of people do, a lot of people visit. So we won't list out everywhere they can find your beers, but they can check out your website and they can find the list there, I presume.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we try to keep our website updated on where we're at, where we're located. Recently, we did have a pretty big setback. So those locations is going to start to dwindle as we can't supply them for a little while. So through our website, there's a phone number and an email there. They can reach out to us and ask if our dive garden is open. And so that's a private space that we do invite people over to just check out our vibe and LassHaus Ales and some samples.
Okay, so people, that's you get to drink it privately. You get an exclusive meeting and a place to drink. I mean, what could be better? And like I said, it sounds like a pretty, like I said, personality-driven beer. So I mean, that's something that you're not going to get. Beers you're not going to get exactly anywhere else. It's not just another IPA with the same citra hops that you're getting everywhere else. So yeah, so hopefully people will check you out and will visit. So thanks a million for the time. Is there anything I should have asked, by the way? I forgot. Anything I didn't ask that you wanted to mention?
I don't know.
Nothing I can think of at the moment.
Right.
Let us know when you're in Austin.
I'll do that. I think it'll be a while before I get there, but I'll definitely check you out. Come and visit. All right, listen, thanks a million for your time. I know it's lunchtime over there, so like you said, you have full jobs as well as the brewery, so I better let you get back.
Thank you.
Thanks a million for the chat.
Thanks.
And we'll see you hopefully sometime soon again. Maybe when you have your big news and big distribution, you might give me a shout when the tap room's open.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Bye, Brian.
Bye.
Bye.